Can women lead over men in politics or business in the context of 1 Timothy chapter 2? And what positions of authority, if any, can they hold in the church?
Women need to be silent and be in the kitchen constantly. I'm just joking.
It's for people that
Obviously.
know you're. Someone just drove off the road.
Yeah.
What did he just say?
1 Timothy chapter 2 is about church, and that's all it's about. And so you have examples in the Old Testament of women judges, for example. And a judge is different than a pastor, obviously. A judge was a ruler over basically a tribal area in Israel, and so Deborah in the Old Testament was a judge, and so you hear about Barak and Deborah, and when Barak was told to go to war against the Syrians, he didn't want to go by himself, and Deborah specifically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but Deborah basically told him, you're giving the glory to a woman here. And so she knew her culture and she knew what was going on, and she said, yeah, I'll go with you, but you're giving the glory to a woman. And so even then she was sensitive to the cultural situation, but God put her in charge. You have examples in the New Testament of people who are discipling, and so oh gosh, I'm blanking out on. Oh brother, let me look up in Romans. Their names are written. Do you guys not know the names of these guys? Yeah. No, Phoebe was a Priscilla and Aquila. Thank you. Phoebe was a deacon, a deaconess. And so you have them, a deaconess in the Bible. Well, let me give you a passage. And so in, let's see, 1 Corinthians 16, or Romans chapter 16, verse 1, I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the church in Cenchrea. Servant in that passage is doulos. Doulos is the word for a deacon. It's the term that was used. Deacon is a term that means servant, and it looks like it was a title there. And then later on, it talks about Priscilla and Aquila, and the fact that they were fellow workers in Christ Jesus. Well, Priscilla and Aquila were instrumental in discipling people, specifically in Corinth, and so they're obviously doing things together in that situation. Neither one of them is a pastor of a church. And First Timothy chapter 2 is not talking about the fact that women can't do anything in church. It's specifically talking about the fact that they shouldn't be the teaching elder in a church. And so in my church, I have women doing all kinds of stuff. In fact, the women do lots of stuff. In my church, our principal, well, we have two principals of our school now. We have a principal of our junior high and high school, and then we have a principal of the grade school, and they're both women. And so the passage in 1 Timothy chapter 2 doesn't have to do with teaching in a school. And so obviously women can be teachers, and you talked about politics. I already addressed that with Deborah. I believe that women can be in politics. And so I don't judge who I'm voting for by their gender. I do now, because they try to keep changing the definition of what a gender is. But I don't judge politicians by their gender, the normative gender. I judge them by their actions. And so one of my favorite politicians was actually the Prime Minister of England back in the 80s, and she was a woman. And so I just liked that lady. And so again, when the Bible's talking about issues like that, where it's putting a role on a man and a woman, it's talking about in the context of the thing that's being spoken of. And so 1 Timothy chapter 2 is talking about the context of church leadership, and specifically teaching elders. He goes right into it in chapter 3. And Ephesians chapter 5 talks about a subsidiary role for women in marriage. And so the husband is to be like Christ and the wife is to be like the church. That's in marriage. And so in my relationship with my wife, that's what our roles are to be. And my wife is to submit to me. She doesn't have to submit to him or him over there. You can't see him or him over there. The Bible talks about submission to me. And so it's in that relationship alone. And that has to do in both instances, whether you're talking about marriage or whether you're talking about in the church, that has to do with the creation and the fall. And it doesn't have to do with anything else. It's a statement of the fact that God created in a certain order, the man first and then the woman, and that there was a fall, and that the woman was in the transgression, Paul says in that passage, at the fall. And so that's why the order is set up that way. And you have it again with marriage. God makes it clear that the woman was going to be submissive to the man in Genesis chapter 3. And it's a function of the fall. And so that's all it is. It has nothing to do with anything else. It has nothing to do with emotionalism. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with strengths. It has nothing to do with those things. And it's just the creation and the fall.
So the two specific things that you just listed are the only places you can say First Timothy chapter 2, and it's not even, it really, when you dive into this stuff as far as submission, I'm supposed to be submitting to my wife, she's supposed to be submitting to me. It's in the context of order, of a final decision making, and how God set it up as a picture.
Right, yeah. And if you're doing it right, you're not going to have a tyranny, and you're not going to have passive aggressive nonsense.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right.
Right.
And if you have a tyranny or passive aggressive nonsense, then you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get passive aggressive with Jesus, and Jesus is not a tyrant. So it's that simple. And that's the way it is in all relationships. So obviously women can be bosses and that kind of thing. So